Hey family, thank you so much for joining me for Wisdom Wednesday, week 2 of my journey. Thank you all so much for your feedback and comments from last week's podcast. I appreciate it more than you know. Let's get started with our prayer. Dear God, thank you so much for your many blessings that you have bestowed upon us, those that are seen and unseen. Thank you for being a waymaker and a miracle worker. Thank you for this opportunity to share you with my family and friends. Lord, please be with us and guide us as we study your word. Let us gain your wisdom and let us carry it in our hearts. I love you and thank you. Amen. Okay, so this week's topic is courage. The scripture is Acts 27:13 through 26. Let's take a listen.
When a gentle south wind began to blow, they saw their opportunity. So they weighed anchor and sailed along the shore of Crete. Before very long, a wind of hurricane force called the Northeaster swept down from the island. The ship was caught by the storm and could not head into the wind, so we gave way to it and were driven along. As we passed to the lee of a small island called Cauda, we were hardly able to make the lifeboat secure, so the men hoisted it aboard. Then they passed ropes under the ship itself to hold it together. Because they were afraid they would run aground on the sandbars of Syrtis, they lowered the sea anchor and let the ship be driven along. We took such a violent battering from the storm that the next day they began to throw the cargo overboard. On the third day, they threw the ship's tackle overboard with their own hands. When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days, and the storm continued raging, we finally gave up all hope of being saved. After they had gone a long time without food, Paul stood up before them and said, "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of the God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island.'"
Okay, so let's jump right in with the questions. The open-ended question is, if a severe storm was approaching your area, what might you do to get ready for it? I would make sure we had flashlights, candles, blankets, pillows, handheld fans, wood for the fireplace, food and water, and seek shelter. Now, these are all the basics, right? But no matter how scary or severe the storm is, I pray that God protects my family, my house, my vehicles, and I trust that he will do just that. Now, we sit and watch the Weather Channel for a while, but if the power goes out and we hear a ton of wind, best believe we in that basement in under 10 seconds because I do not do tornadoes. Okay, so the next section is explored. The first question reads, how was the ship's crew deceived by a gentle south wind? They thought it was their opportunity to sail. Question number 2. At what point did those on board ship give up hope? When neither sun nor stars appeared for many days and the storm continued raging. Question number 3. What did Paul say to encourage everyone on board in spite of the hardships ahead? But now I urge you to keep up your courage, because not one of you will be lost. Only the ship will be destroyed. Last night, an angel of God to whom I belong and whom I serve stood beside me and said, "Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men, for I have faith in God that it will happen just as he told me. Nevertheless, we must run aground on some island." Now for the get it section. The first question reads, once they lost control of the ship and their situation, how do you think the men on board felt? First of all, Let's talk about the motion and seasickness on board for days in a windstorm. I'd be like, oh Lord, help me, please, help me, please. I'll be singing, I told the storm the whole time. I mean, I've been on a couple of cruises, but my little cruises don't compare to this. And I thank God for it. But if I got sick on those cruises, I wouldn't be no good to anybody if I was on that ship, let alone help throw some things overboard and not eat for days. Okay, I digress. But on a serious note, these men have got to be the most courageous and strong men out there. Now, I'm sure they are used to traveling by sea and getting some turbulence, but this is different. You are fearing for your life, the ship, and the men on there with you. How do you even muster up courage and keep it at a time like this? They feel the storm will never end, not seeing the sun or stars for many days, not just one day, but many days, and doing all you could think of to make the situation better. But the fact still remains, you are in a storm, which means you don't have control over it, but God does. Sometimes when you're in a storm, all you can see is the debris and feel strong winds beating against you. So you focus on the storm, not God. To me, I think of it like this. You can go through a storm, but to get to the eye of the storm is the key. That's the calm. That's the peace. That's the rest. To me, that's God. And you have to focus yourself and your thoughts on God in the storm. Even though some may blame him for the storm or feel like this is happening to them and not for them. But I heard in a gospel song that there's a blessing in the storm. You just have to be courageous enough to see it through. Next question. What does this account tell you about God? No matter what your storm looks like, he is stronger and bigger than it. He will bring you through your storm no matter what it is or how long it is. Is your storm worse than the storm of these men? If God brought them through, what do you think will happen to you? Or did you forget that God has already brought you through a time or two? Thank God that you're still alive, because you could have easily been thrown off your ship and left at sea to die. Thank God for what he is doing behind the scenes. Sometimes we think about what we see that he's doing. A lot of times we forget that he's already making a way. But we have to thank him for it anyway, whether we see it or not. And ask God what it is that he wants you to see or learn from this storm. I don't know about y'all, but it seems that all the storms I have been through, there's either a lesson, blessing, or revelation tied to the end of it. Something to open your eyes and see why it happened, what you need to do differently, and thankfulness to God for bringing you to a point to be able to look back and reflect. Be encouraged to make it to the end of your storm. My roommate in college used to play this song every Sunday. Shout out to her. But I ain't gonna sing it. Not gonna do that. But the words are, be encouraged. No matter what's going on, he'll make it all right. But you gotta stay strong. Look it up. Be Encouraged by William Beckton. And last question in the Get It section. How can you be joyful in spite of your circumstances? Sometimes it's hard to be joyful when that's not what you're feeling at the time. If you're struggling with something, that tends to be in the forefront of your mind. So to be joyful means that you have to take control of your thoughts, redirect yourself, and try to think positively about what God has already done for you. Try to be joyful about the things that we take for granted. God has done so much for us already. We've come so far in our lives. Look at all the things we've done and look at where God has put us. I recently heard a sermon and it said to be grateful because at least you have something to complain about. You can't stand your spouse, but at least you got one. You can't stand your job. At least you got one. You mad because the gas prices are too high, but at least you got a car to drive because walking is free. But who wants to do that, right? You imagine yourself walking to work every day. Now that's something to complain about. You got legs though, so be grateful for that. So be grateful that God will bring you through no matter what you're going through. Be joyful that he can carry your burdens and you don't have to worry at all. That's truly trusting in God and allowing him to do what he does best. Remember, God is in control. You just have to get out the way. Have courage to release your control, stress, and fears to him. All right, last section, apply it. And the question reads, when can you encourage someone this week and how? I like to encourage you to have a conversation with God about what you're going through right now. No matter what it is, no matter how big or small, I want you to tell him all your worries, fears, wants, and needs, everything. Tell him how you're feeling. Talk to him about everything. Talk to him like you're talking to a trusted friend. Lay all your heaviness at his feet. Thank him for what he's about to do, because he's about to do. Okay? Ask him to help you stay out of the way. A lot of times we say, Lord, I want you to take this off of me. But then we still try to do these things and we still try to be in control. Or we'll tell him, Lord, I need you to do this for me. And we're putting our will upon him instead of allowing his will to be done. That's you trying to take control again from God. Leave control in his hands and tell him, I need help with this. Ask him to help you stay out the way. Then when you're done praying and giving all you have to God and saying, this is my burden, these are my worries, these are my fears. Once you're done praying to him and pouring it all out, I want you to stand up, take a deep breath, feel the heaviness melt away from your body. Feel how light your shoulders have become. Relax and let God take the wheel. Like as they say, God take the wheel. Jesus take the wheel. And believe it to be so. Trust that he will take care of you like he always has and always will. And that wraps up week 2 of Wisdom Wednesdays. I thank you, family and friends, for joining me once again. I love you. I hope you have a wonderful week this week. And look out for the next Wisdom Wednesday.